Are you tired of the endless stream of fantasy marketing and vanity metrics? Yeah, so am I. My name is James Patrick, and I'm an internationally published photographer, media specialist, and marketing strategist. I'm also a student of professional development, and like you, I've been left frustrated by all of this influencer-driven generic advice, making us think that we are just one course, conference, or manifestation away from the life of our dreams. We need to cut through this crap and move beyond the posturing, beyond the facade, beyond the image to take real action on the real work that will create the real results. This is the Beyond the Image podcast. What is going on? And thank you so much for tuning in to this, our latest episode of the Beyond the Image podcast. Honored that you could take some time to get a little information, get a little inspiration to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. I got an email yesterday. Maybe you've seen the headlines. The email was about what is being dubbed as the mother of all hacks or the mother of all data breaches, with impacted individuals in the billions. That's billions with a B. And I get emails like this, I don't know, maybe once every other month about a breach with a social media company or a banking company or a hotel chain, and how it might put users' information at risk. And it's easy to look at that and say, well, that's a big company, and maybe my information was impacted, maybe not, but it is too far away for it to impact me. But what if it was within your own company? What if it was within your email or your social media account? And all of a sudden, now we're thinking of instances where we did get those notifications that someone was trying to breach our Facebook account, or someone was trying to access our Instagram account, or someone was trying to reset our email password. So that's what I want to talk about on this episode, is what you as an entrepreneur need to do to best protect yourself and your data. So I have a guest I'm bringing on. She's a dear friend, actually an alumni of much of what we've done. She's a cybersecurity consultant, Heather Monthie. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, James.
I appreciate you jumping on. So obviously this is a topic that can be very stressful and very overwhelming. And because it can be so overwhelming, it's so easy for people just to maybe ignore it. And, you know, if it's out of sight, out of mind, with the assumption that, well, if I'm not a big fish, how likely is someone going to be targeting me? With your experience, how real is this as a, you know, maybe the word is threat, but how important is it for entrepreneurs to be diligent about their cybersecurity practices, and why?
So it is extremely important. I think that small businesses are the backbone of this country. A lot of people have small businesses. A lot of people work for small businesses. The people that do the cyber attacks, we call them threat actors. When they're conducting their attacks, they're looking at who is going to be an easy target. And companies that don't have a dedicated security team, companies that don't have a dedicated IT team are large targets for cyber attacks, simply because they know that you don't have somebody who's monitoring your systems 24/7. So small businesses have largely been getting targeted, simply because you have a lot of information about your clients. You've got information on their names, you've got their credit card information, you've got some very valuable information that they know are probably not being guarded or watched 24/7. Whereas
Hmm.
some of these larger companies, they have dedicated people that's what they're doing 24/7, 365.
Yeah. And, you know, I think in addition to that, like, even just say if we were using, like, we use a third party merchant processor. So more than likely, I'm not seeing my client's credit card information, but I still have their mailing addresses, their email addresses. I still have data on them that it is housed. So the level of what could be accessed certainly can vary. And then also, and this is happens so frequently is our ability to even connect or communicate with our audiences. Meaning, I had mentioned, like, if someone had breached our one of our social media accounts or breached our email service, or I remember one time someone was trying to access many years ago our content management system. So what we use to send e-blasts out to all of our mailing lists. Well, if we lost that, we lose access to 10,000 of our contacts right there. So there's a lot of areas that we need to watch over.
Yeah, so I think when you are talking about these third-party merchants that you're using, a lot of small businesses use them. You certainly can't do all of this work on your own. So you go and you hire other companies to do some of these things. Things like your payment processor or your email system, all the things that you just mentioned. And what you'll want to do as a business owner is really do your due diligence on those companies that you're doing business with. Make sure you understand what their security practices are. What kinds of things do they have in place that they're going to protect your client's information? So while you might not necessarily see your client's credit card information because it's done through a third party payment processor, you're still responsible for that. So you want to make sure that you have vetted payment processors, not just a fly by night thing that kind of comes and goes, right? So you want to make sure that whoever you're doing business with, they've got good security practices in place. You can request copies of their security policies. Most of them have information that they'll give to potential clients of their own. And then if looking at things like your email system, for example, a lot of times when we're talking about on the digital marketing side of things is not to build your house on social media and you need to collect emails and you need to have an email list, right? But what happens if that software that you're managing your email list with is compromised, right? So what you'll want to do there is make sure you have a backup of your email list. So do the exports. You have every single email provider out there has a way that you can export all of your contact information. So making sure that that's just sort of part of your weekly or your monthly or your quarterly processes of things that you just do as part of your business, that you go and you make that extract of your email list, so that, let's just say, your email provider does become compromised, you still have a backup spreadsheet of names and email addresses.
This comes down to protecting your data. Excuse me. One of the things that we've had to set as a standard operating practice for us is every month we back up all the data of every website we own. Reason being is it is so common for websites to be subject to a brute force attack. And every now and then, whether it's the website admin panel gets breached or a plugin that you use from a third party gets breached, all of a sudden your website has become accessed by a third party and thus can be redirected anywhere individuals want to redirect it to, or have malicious code installed in it. And thus it's just become a standard business practice that every single month, even if we've had no security concerns, and knock on wood, it's very rare we do, we already have a backup. So should anything happen, or even it's just if the website breaks because an update happened and
Yep.
two things aren't talking to each other, guess what? We have a backup. It's less than 4 weeks old at any given point. So we can get a working website that is safe to put back up. That's just one example. As we're kind of talking, I'm thinking of all these different scenarios where we could be left exposed. What are some warning signs that you would really urge listeners to be on the lookout for, be vigilant about when it comes to managing or protecting their data?
There's several things that I would suggest to take a look for. When we're talking about websites, if your website has really slowed down, it's not responsive to requests of people trying to view your information. You're getting some weird text on your website, things that just don't seem right. You're like, I didn't do that. Did anybody do this? This is kind of odd. That's generally a good indication that something has happened. Either it's a malicious attack or it's like what you had mentioned earlier. It's a plugin that just went awry, an update that just didn't work, something like that. And you want to make sure that you have those backups in place. If you're updating your website every single day, my rule of thumb is always, how much work is it going to take to restore the amount of work that you just did, and at what point is that going to sort of make you angry? So if you lose 3 or 4 days worth of work because you've written 4 or 5 blog posts, is that going to make you angry? You should be doing your backups much more frequently then. Whereas if you only update your website once or twice a month, if you do a backup monthly, that's probably okay. The other thing you want to do is make sure that those backups work. The last thing you want to have happen is that you're running backups, you think you're good, and then as soon as you need to use that backup, so the file's corrupted or it wasn't backing up everything that you thought it was, things like that. So you want to make sure that those backups are working. On the other side of things, when you look at things like phishing and social media, and everybody gets these links, these emails with these links, right? And oftentimes we're wondering, is this a scam or is this real? How do I know? And it used to be that we would tell people, look at the language of the email. If it just doesn't seem like it was written very well, it wasn't written very professionally, it could potentially be what we call as a phishing email, where they're trying to get you to click a link so that you put in your username and a password in a fake website, right?
Mhm.
But now with all of these different tools out there, such as ChatGPT, it's become a lot easier for people who are trying to write emails that really sound like they're coming from Bank of America or they're coming from PayPal. These tools are making it much easier for those threat actors to write those emails. So my suggestion is always, when you get an email that says something like, you've got a $500 deduction is coming out of your checking account. Click here if you want to dispute this. Don't click
Yep.
here. Just go to your bank's website that you know what their URL is. Just go there, type it in, and go directly to the horse's mouth.
I think for a while it was assumed that shame on you if you fall for any of these things because of examples like they are so poorly written, or the sender email address is clearly not from a verified domain. It's some gmail.com or something like that is sending this email. But it's become a lot savvier. Like the one that I always get a kick out of is when it looks like I sent myself an email. They'll like make it look like, my email's emailing me. I don't remember what that was called. Someone told me once. And it's always like a funny message of, we've been spying on you through your webcam, so we know what you've been doing. And to which my response is, that sucks for you. I'm sorry.
Sorry you had to watch that.
But hope you enjoyed. I don't know. Like,
Right.
but just stand the point. Like, had I not been aware enough, all of a sudden I would have been like, wait, did someone actually because it legitimately will say my email address as the sender.
So that's an interesting scenario that you bring up. So oftentimes when we think about cybersecurity, we think about it as this overly technical field, and
Mhm.
it's not. There's a lot of psychology in this field as well. So when I'm working with a company and trying to build up their cybersecurity best practices, we look at people, we look at process, and we look at technology. So we look at the people and the people working in the organization, and how they might become a victim of a cyber attack. Then you look at the processes, all the different things that you have in place. Things like, are you running backups every week or every month? Are you making sure that you've got updates running, that kind of thing? But then the technology is, what kind of technologies do you have in place to help protect your organization? So things like a virus scanner on your computer, or even a firewall, something like this. But when we're talking about people are very emotional creatures,
Mhm.
and we're very reactive to things. And the threat actors know that, and they know how to sort of get a rise out of you, and that you can say to yourself, I'm never going to become a victim of this, because I'm always, every time I get an email, I'm just going to think about whether or not it's really real or not. But when you get an email that says your account's been overdrawn by $500, or we're going to take this money out of your account, click here to dispute it, or we've been watching your webcam, and if you don't click here and send us 50 Bitcoin or whatever, it gets a rise out of people. And so as a
Mhm.
result, you're like, oh no, and you start clicking on things going, oh my gosh. And now suddenly you've gone to a website that might look like your bank's website, but it's not. And you've typed in your username, you've typed in your password, and now that threat actor has your credentials to log into your bank account. And so the psychology of hacking, I guess, is that they understand they understand how to get a rise out of you. They understand that emotion. I think right now the biggest thing that I'm seeing, you mentioned the mother of all data breaches that just happened recently, but also anybody that's got a Facebook business page has been getting these messages saying, your page is violated copyright. We're going to
Yes.
take your page down,
I've been
right?
getting like 5 of those a day.
Yes, yeah, and so people are like, "I'm trying to run a business here. You can't take my page down. You can't take my Facebook ads down," right? So they start clicking on things. And when they
Mm,
click on those things, it takes them to a fake website that looks like Facebook, but it's not. And now you've given them your credentials and they can log into your Facebook account. They can get access to your ads account. They can get access to your business page, things like that. So that's what they do is they really try to plan your emotion,
mhm.
and get you to do stuff you're like you continually tell yourself, "Oh, I would never do that. I would never do that." But suddenly when that emotion is risen up, you're doing stuff you wouldn't normally do.
Every time I get a call from my parents and it starts off with, "I got this message on Facebook," I just get like this panic that sets in. I'm like, "Please tell me you did not click anything."
Mhm.
Like, "Please." Well, I I just clicked it once. Oh, there used to be this egotism kind of looking at technology that, well, I use Macintosh, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because everything I own is Mac based, I don't have to worry about this. And like I've always looked at it as like, well, if I'm going to be targeting people, I'm just going to be targeting the larger number. And there was a point where PC was a vast majority of, everything. All that, certainly shifted and definitely shifted when it came to mobile devices. So I would think iOS platforms would be targeted even more than a Windows-based platform. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, every excuse me, every computer system out there is hackable.
Mm,
Anybody that says their system is unhackable is lying, and that's just a marketing ploy. Given enough time, energy, money, everything is hackable. And so I think that, there's still a little bit of that mindset out there that, I've got a Mac, or I've got an iPhone, that you're less likely to become a victim of a cyber attack. But it's just not true anymore. I think with a lot of stuff being web based, social media based, and even things like just falling for scams. Some of these technologies that are out there now, I have a video that I share and I use in presentations. It's a video of me talking, and you can see me talking, and I talk with my hands, and I have, certain mannerisms that I have, and I made this video using AI,
mhm,
and it's not me. It's 100% not me. And
yep.
I even my mom was like, "Wow." The person who knows me best in this world was just wow. So really we're at a point where, I think that the device that you choose to use we've come to this point where it's what is your personal preference, because a lot of this stuff now is taken out of the context of what device are you on, and it's become more of this sort of social um social influence, and being able to get you to click on links through Facebook and, Instagram, and now with AI, the possibilities are limitless at this point.
One that I've been getting, it happens maybe, I don't know, let's say twice a year, is I'll get it's a text message, and it will be a person pretending that they know me, but it's from a number I don't know. And they'll try to engage in a conversation. Is that kind of like a long play scam? Like they're just trying to eventually, I don't know, get me to send them money to
Yeah.
overseas? Like, is that what that is?
Yeah. So you'll see this a lot with a little bit of the older crowd. But I think it's starting to happen to people of all ages now. But you'll get a text message, and it's somebody claiming to be you or somebody that you know, and how they figure out that it's somebody that you know is because you have social media, and it's very easy to see who you interact with on social media. So you can say, okay, James, you're probably friends with this person, or I know who your wife is, right? So I can send a text message to you claiming to be your wife. I mean, my phone is dead, I'm stranded, I need you to send me some money.
Hmm.
Here, and then here's the link, right? But it's not like you don't get that message right away. There's the interaction back and forth to make you think that it's really the person that's pretending to be somebody else.
The ones I've gotten are far less sophisticated. It would be something ambiguous like, "Hey, are we still up to get dinner later?"
Sure. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like and I know it's just like, "Okay, I'm not even respond, I'm just gonna block the number." But, the first time I got that, I definitely was like, "Did I make dinner
Like, what is
plans?"
this? Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes those are spammers just trying to see if it's a valid phone number. So
Ah,
if you respond, then they know it's a valid phone
they know
number.
it's real. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's oftentimes it's what that is.
This is the creepiest one that I've come across, which is I've had twice someone contact me pretending to be one of my clients, asking for their photos to be resent to them.
Okay.
And it immediately, no, it's not. It was like, "What? You don't live in California. Why is this a California area code?" Like, I obviously it's very clearly not them, but that was enough that I was like, "Okay, so you saw who this person was, figured out who they were working with, found out their information, me, and contacted me to try to access their photos or their, which would be their, you know, data as it were." That was creepy. I found that very creepy.
Yeah, that's something that we call is called spear phishing. It's where you're really targeting a certain person based on what you know they have, what kind of data they know that you have. So you'll see it a lot with like the CEO of a company. How do you know it's the CEO of a company? You go to a website, you can see who their leadership is. Oftentimes their leaderships are always listed on a website. You can go on LinkedIn and figure out who is the CFO of this company. There's one case study that is used in pretty much every cybersecurity class is that a woman, she was the executive assistant for a CEO of a company, and somebody sent her an email pretending to be the CEO. The CEO's email had been compromised, so it looked like it was coming directly from the CEO, and the CEO had asked for all the W-2s to be sent to him because he wanted to review
Mm,
them, and it wasn't him, it was somebody else. So these are very targeted attacks when they know exactly who you are and what kind of data that you have about other people, and then they'll make this very targeted attack versus just some of these are just very general, like, "Hey, like I said, we're gonna take $500 out of your checking account." Now it's this is James Patrick, the photographer, who's probably got some interesting photos of people, maybe,
mhm.
right? And can we get access to them?
Okay, now that I and my listeners are successfully creeped out, let's talk about defense. What can we do as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs to ensure that not that we're going to prevent anything from happening, but to best protect ourselves in case anything does happen?
Yeah, I always say to just start out with making an inventory of all of the different assets that you have, okay? And so maybe just as you're going through your day or your week, you have a notepad or maybe just on your phone, all of the different pieces of technology that you interact with in your business. So you might have a desktop computer, you might have a laptop computer, you might have a cell phone. You might log into this website to do your banking. You might log into that website to run payroll. There's a lot of different um, hardware and software that you probably use in your business every day. And so just over a day or over a week, start taking that inventory of all the things that you have. And then from there, identify what are the things that if somebody stole them or got access to them, it would be detrimental to your business. These are going to be your critical assets. These are the things that like we're out of business if we don't have these things. And then that's where you'll want to start with making sure that you've got something in place to protect them. So, for example, your cell phone. Your cell phone probably has your banking information on there, your banking app. It's probably got your business email, your personal email, pictures, things like that. Making sure that you've got a PIN number, a strong PIN number, more than 4 digits on your phone, or using biometrics, something like that. Making sure that you have things like multi-factor authentication turned on, which is where you go, you sign in, put your username, your password in, and you get texted a code. That's multi-factor authentication. Making sure that you're running those backups. And so really just starting with figuring out what is it that you have, what is it that's super critical for your business, start there, and then start just putting these things in place. The FCC does have a really good checklist, and I'll give you the link that you can share with your listeners. It's a 10 steps for cybersecurity best practices for small businesses, and these are really good steps that you can take that are really just assume you probably don't have an IT person or a tech person or a security team. These are all things that you can do yourself. Things like you having a PIN number on your mobile devices and putting in a virus scanner, using a firewall, things like that.
What would you say excuse me. What would you say is one of the most easy to implement but overlooked safety measures that a lot of people just avoid for maybe it's laziness, maybe it's apathy, or maybe it's ignorance?
PIN numbers on your cell phones. When I see people without either use a PIN number or Face ID or some sort of biometrics, just something. If somebody gets access to your phone, that's everything. You've got everything in there. And if you're like me, I leave it everywhere. If somebody gets access to that stuff. And then even within your device. So you've got a pin to access the phone, but then inside your phone, maybe you've got additional security. So for example, on my banking apps, I still have to put in another password. I still have to put in my thumbprint, something like that. So it's
Mhm.
it's another layer of security on top of it. But that's the one I see probably most frequently. And whenever I talk to somebody that says I lost my phone, I'm like, do you have a pin on it at least? Oftentimes it's no. So make sure you've got your phone protected.
Yeah, that's a good one. Eh, should anything go awry or happen, and I know the answer to this might be pretty broad based off, like, what the scenario is, but what would be a like, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running the business yourself, like, basically, like, a crisis management approach, like, okay, something happened, whether it was a cell phone was stolen, website was breached, um, you lost access to a social media account. Is there a standard operating procedure on how to approach a solution?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Be proactive. You can create something for yourself. You can create a disaster recovery plan and you can create a business continuity plan. And really, what this is, these are two different plans that if you had an IT person or a security team, this is what they would put in place. And you can sit down and just take a half a day and say, okay, after you've done this inventory on all of your assets, your hardware, your software, all your information that you have, from there, you've identified what are the most critical for your business to run. Now you're going to say, all right, what am I going to do if I lose access to this? What is my backup plan? Do I have a plan in place? Do I have contact information? So, for example, if you're using a certain email provider and your email provider has been, your email software has been breached, the last thing you want to do, you're freaking out, right? So, the last thing you want to do is sit there and go through their website and try to figure out who to contact and who do I get in touch with, have all that documented to beforehand so that if and when something does happen, you can look at this document and go, okay, I need to call this number. I need to email this email address. You've got it all right there. Then you have a separate business continuity plan, and that is okay, the most critical part of my business has been compromised, whether it's your email software, your payment processor, etc. What is the backup plan that I can get in place short term in order so that I can continue accepting payments while I'm rectifying this situation? So, do you have a separate backup plan? Do you have a separate like PayPal account or something like that? You
Mhm.
can still at least accept payments so your business isn't just completely shut down as you're trying to work through this. So really it's just identifying those assets, making that plan and having that in place for if and when something does happen.
I love that you brought up this concept of a continuity plan. It's not something I had considered before, but it's true. Like, should something happen, it is going to myopically consume our focus, but it doesn't allow us to shut down a business.
Right.
Like, we still have clients to serve, we still have consumers. The business still has to operate. So we have to have a contingency, whether it's how we're connecting with our clients, how we're processing payments with our clients, how we're delivering assets to our clients. There needs to be a backup so that the business itself doesn't get impacted because one of the digital assets was accessed or infringed upon.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you don't want to have your business shut down. I think one of the things that it makes me so passionate about what I do is that, like I said earlier, small business is the backbone of this country, and small businesses are a large target, a large cybersecurity target. And the majority of small businesses that are victims of cyber attack go out of business within 6 months to a year. They just simply don't recover from it. And that's one of the reasons I'm out talking and giving presentations like this that just really help people understand some of the things that you can do before something happens. I know it's hard, you're busy, you're trying to serve your clients and you got to do marketing, you got a sales call, this and that and the other. There's all these other things that you got to do, but cybersecurity is over here just kind of lingering and it doesn't bring in revenue. But it is something that you want to think about so that when something does happen, that you're not in this panic and you can't pay your employees and you can't serve your clients, and you've just got that plan in place so that you can be very level headed and think through this thing to get your company through it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the important part of it is personal as this seems, and even in a spearheaded approach, which seems even more personal, um, this is still you're one of many targets that someone is pursuing. This is not a situation more often than not of a vendetta. So try to remove that personal like feeling that you yourself were attacked. You were, and now let's put in front of us a plan to one, protect our assets, and two, should anything happen, be able to ensure that the business is not fully impacted by whatever happened. Because as personal as it is as stressful as it is and I've been there where it's just like you just feel so defeated. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. To be able to move forward with your business and be able to continue with your business, that right there is going to help so much in regards to how you're energetically processing this, I believe.
Yeah, and I think if you com- c- the analogy I like to use is building a house. And a lot of people can understand that concept that you've got a plot of land and you put some lumber together and some windows and suddenly you have a home. And when somebody breaks into that home, you have this sense of violation. You probably wasn't personal. It could be, but it probably wasn't personal. It was a crime of opportunity. Somebody took it, and you feel very violated. I was living alone and I had somebody break in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. I
Mm,
understand that feeling of violation. But when you have a home, for example, you have certain things that you have put in place to proactively prevent that from happening. So things like putting locks on your doors and making sure that when your car is sitting in the driveway, you don't have your garage door opener in the car. So if somebody breaks into the car, they can't get into the garage. You've got locks on your windows. You close up the dog door when you're going to be gone on vacation for a week. There's certain things that you do to protect your home to be proactive about it. It doesn't mean something's not going to happen, but you're making it harder for somebody to get in.
hmm.
And when you do some of these things for your business with around your IT assets, you're just making it harder for other people to get in.
Yeah. Yeah, that perfect analogy. Heather, this was such a helpful conversation. Where can listeners go to be able to connect with you, learn more about the work you're doing, or if they have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I'm very active on both LinkedIn and Twitter around cybersecurity. I post quite frequently about different various cybersecurity topics. So happy to connect with you there.
Perfect. Awesome. And we'll make sure those links are in the show notes, Heather. Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.